So it's tough right now because the series is still going on. It's 2-2. But let's get right into it. So would you care to guess how many players in NBA history have scored 40 or more points in a finals game on the road that their team won? How many players have done it?
40 points on the road that their team won.
Yeah, in the finals.
Can this be one of those things where I talk it out?
You're not going to remember all these.
Okay.
I'm just
Is it more than, is it like 10?
It is 10.
Oh, okay. It's 10. All right.
It is.
And it's a finals game. It's a finals game.
Yeah. You want to guess the 10? Well,
so,
Steph is one.
Well, Steph also, so there's 9 more.
Yep.
Nobody did it in 2021. Nobody did it in 2020. Nobody did it in 2019.
We're gonna be here for a long time.
If I do it that way, okay. Because I don't think LeBron did it. LeBron didn't do it in any of the 4 games. Did Durant do it?
I'll make it easy for you. Like it's a list of, with the exception of like one guy who is, I think is the top 25 player ever. These are all very obvious.
So let me get the obvious ones. So
you said one, Durant.
Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant are on this list. LeBron James.
All 3 are on. Yes,
has done this. I'm trying to think of the game.
I'm going to go through the games, but Durant has done it. James has LeBron has done it.
Game 5, 2016 is LeBron's game. Okay,
and that someone else did it in that same
Kyrie
game.
Irving. Okay, good point. All right.
Okay, so he is. I would say, actually, not arguably, he is the worst player on this list.
So
easily the worst player on this list because everybody else is in the top 75 of all time.
Did Wilt do it?
No. So you named Curry, Durant, Irving, LeBron, Michael Jordan.
Just go through the list. Yeah. I'm sure they're all obvious, but go ahead.
There actually is one other one that you should remember because it stands out. I'll give you a hint. It was game 1, and it was the only game that this player's team
Allen
won.
Iverson.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's 6. The other 4. Magic Johnson, John Havlicek.
The game 6 in 1980. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Havlicek.
There you go. Havlicek. And then the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times it was done by a pair of Laker teammates, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor.
Okay.
And so I want to go back in receding order and tell you just why this Curry game, I think, is perhaps even more special than we realize. So the Durant game, where he put up 43 points. That was in Cleveland when Golden State was up 2-0 in that series. There was drama in the game. I get it. It was 2018.
Look no further than the points in the paint in that game. I'm sure you remember just the Cavs had no idea how to switch. So every time they would like try to cover a pick and pop, like JaVale McGee or Kevon Looney or whoever the center was would just be wide open for a dunk. The amount of open layups that the Warriors had. And that was the game Steph went 1 of 10 from 3 too. So they were able to survive all of that.
Your memory is incredible.
Yeah.
And that's the series that is essentially ended after game 1 with JR. So before that was the Irving and LeBron doing it in the same game. Incredible amazing performances with the Cavs down 3-1. Obviously they win that game and they win the next 2 after that. Here's the thing though. They had each other doing what they were doing. Steph Curry had 43 the other night. The next leading scorer for the Warriors had 17 points, right? Andrew
Wiggins. Yeah.
That's a 25. I mean, if you go by like the percentage difference between like Wiggins and Curry, it's insane. That's why I'm not saying that like Curry's was like more or less impressive than Irving and LeBron, but like that has to be taken into consideration. Okay. So before that, you had the Iverson game, which was game 1. Very impressive, but it was game 1. It's like the pressure builds with each ascending game. And for me, if the Warriors lose this game, like, yes, they could have come back, I guess, from 3-1 down to win it, but it doesn't happen very often.
It also went into overtime. So AI has the benefit of
the extra 5 minutes.
Extra 5 minutes. Not that like you take away.
I mean, he had 48. So,
but I'm saying like I'm not remember. knock on my memory. I don't remember the moment of that game of like, did he have 40 going into overtime? What I do remember mostly about that game is it's the only game the Lakers lost that postseason.
Yes, exactly.
That's probably the most one. I don't know. I understand where you're going with this. It's one of the more impressive games throughout this collection of
it was incredibly impressive. But if I recall correctly, even after that game, I don't think people were jumping up and down saying, "Oh, Sixers, they could win." No,
he would have needed to do that and then some, to try and beat them in regulation.
Exactly, and he did not do that, and then some. The three before that were all Jordan games. One was obviously in '98 when he beat the Bulls. Mm-hmm. That was in Game 6.
The Jazz beat the Jazz.
The Jazz, excuse me.
Yeah.
But it was again Game 6. Bulls lose that game. You get to play another one. Before that, it was 42 that he put up at Phoenix in 1990. What?
Game 6?
This was game 2.
Game 2. So Barkley also went off that game. Yeah.
So that game, Jordan had 42, Horace Grant had 24, Scottie Pippen had 15, and Barkley also had 42 in that game in a loss. That was the Bulls. If ever, I mean, look, it's the finals. It's never house money, but like they had already won game 1 in Phoenix. They were kind of playing with house money. So again, not to diminish freaking Michael Jordan scoring 42 points in the finals. It's a big deal, but I don't think it was the same type of pressure as what Steph was under, especially since, as we just said, Steph's supporting cast, not quite the same. And then the Jordan performance before that was the previous year in Portland. And that was with the Bulls tied 2-2. And then they went on to win that series in 6 games. So again, that series was tied.
Mm-hmm.
1980, they didn't even go back 12 years. Magic Johnson, 1980, Lakers were up 3-2 in the series. It was the closeout game. Again, key point, they were up in the series. Before that, you have to go back another 12 years to John Havlicek. This was, again, another closeout game with the Celtics up 3-2. Havlicek, the Celtics won by 15 points in LA. Havlicek scored 40. Again, they were up in the series. And then before that, you have to go back to 66, 63, 62, 62 for the Baylor and West games. Here's the point. When we're going back to the 60s to find games that are like truly comparable, and like, yes, Elgin Baylor in 1966, the Lakers were tied and were down 3-1. Like that kind of kept them in the series. There's obviously Elgin Baylor's 61-point game in the finals, pretty impressive. This is up there in the pantheon. It's way up there.
And the thing all of them have in common, outside from the LeBron Kyrie game, is that this, of all the rest of them, really flipped the series. Like, I don't know how you feel, but I think the series is over if they lose game.
I think the series is over if they lost that game.
So it legitimately saved their season, and he did it. I mean, as we went through the list, he really did it by himself. Well,
this leads me to, I was going to save this for later, but I'll just bring it up now. I don't think we need to talk about it for long because, again, we're not there yet. But like, when's the last team? Like, let's say the Warriors win this. What was the last supporting? I feel bad calling like Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson supporting cast, but like, when's the last supporting cast that was this? I don't know. Iffy? Like, who's the second best player for the Warriors in the series? It's Wiggins.
It's probably, at this point, it's Wiggins. Yeah.
It's Wiggins, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if they could win the series with Andrew Wiggins being the second best player, but again, let's say that they did. You have to go at least back to the Mavs, right? In 2011.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And I mean, the Spurs had like a collection.
That's
the thing. That's
like, the opposite of this.
Yeah. Like they were so deep in the rotation that it was like, regardless of whether they don't have the best or second best player in the series, they still have like 3 through 8. So it's different, that's disrespectful to Bosch. It's probably 4 through 8.
I'll even shout again. I was listening to all kinds of stuff about this game. I was listening to Simmons talk about this with Waz and I think Rob
Mahoney.
Rob Mahoney. After Steph, how many of like the next best players in the series do the Celtics have? It's definitely Tatum and Brown. I think you could probably argue Smart.
I'm at the point where I owe Jeremy an apology because I argued, and this is where I got to just be transparent with this. I've been so confused by this Boston team throughout the playoffs.
Because they are very confusing.
I went into the playoffs thinking they could win it all, then watched them sweep Brooklyn, which I thought they'd at least win the series, but didn't think they'd sweep. It's like, oh, maybe they like this might be easy on how they win it all. Then watching them struggle to defend home court, but then have these Jekyll and Hyde moments throughout the rest of the next two rounds. And I looked at the first two games we were doing our playback, and you said like Boston's clearly the better team. And Jeremy's like, after Steph, the next like three guys, like I definitely take Marcus Smart over Draymond. And I like vigorously argued that like, no, Draymond's a generational defender. And
I mean, he is, but
like even his generational defense doesn't matter if you're a negative on offense. And it's gotten to the point where I'm so confused by this series that like the first two games, the Celtics really had one great quarter, and it's how they got the split. And then they looked like they were the better team in the fourth quarter of game three, and it's how they took the advantage. And then yesterday, they just kind of disappeared. All it took was subbing out Draymond, which is, hats off to Steve Kerr. And it's why I agree with you now. Yeah, the Celtics are the better team, and I'd probably go Smart ahead of the next Warrior. When you put a war,
a nice series.
That's the thing. Rob Williams and like
he's having a very nice series. I think probably I go Wiggins ahead of Williams, but I'm gonna save I have a response to what you just said about why the Celtics lost that game. And you want to talk about confusing? A team often takes its notes from its best player.
Okay,
we're gonna talk about Tatum in a bit. One more note on Steph here. So I'm a big efficiency guy. Efficiency's changed a lot over the years. Like it's unfair to point to Steph's efficiency and be like, oh, that means he is having this much better of a finals than like, I don't know what Elgin Baylor's and Jerry West's efficiency was back. Actually, I do know. I'm looking at it. Like it's not great. Back in those early series, it doesn't matter. It's a different sport now. So the highest in terms of best player on a finals team, like unequivocally best player on a finals team, best efficiency that I could find was LeBron in 2020 in the final. I'm talking strictly finals, 659 effective field goal percentage, which is so absurd. And I think it deserves an asterisk. Not saying the championship deserves an asterisk, but that is the same bubble playoffs in which we saw like Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray take turns putting up 50-point games.
38% from three, Anthony Davis. That's really all you have to say.
Okay, so you're with me.
Yeah.
So like all the respect to LeBron.
Yeah. I don't actually think the bubble, we've talked about this, the Coors Field effect when I talk about the Warriors. Like you go to the Warriors and all of a sudden your numbers are inflated. The bubble is like if everybody just played a tournament at Coors Field, or a home run derby at Coors Field with aluminum bats. Like it was just the purest form of basketball. And as a result, it made it harder because you couldn't count, this guy's going to have an off night. Nobody had an off night.
And it stands out because LeBron's finals performance there, efficiency wise, was like so much better than the next best guy in finals history, who I have it as Kevin Durant in 2017, 639 effective field goal percentage in those finals. As of right now, Curry's sitting third. Through 4 games, he's at 633. After him, you go to Giannis last year, 630. Actually, sorry. After him, you go to Shaq in 2004. Now, people forget that team because they got annihilated by the Pistons. But Shaq was at 631. That's that year. Giannis 630 last year. And then you go LeBron 2017, 615, and then Shaq in 2000. Shaquille O'Neal was really good. 611. Those are your above 60% effective field goal percentage guys in finals history. Like, again, best guy on the team. Steph's right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what we do with this at this point.
What we do is, and I'm really glad it's happening. Although I don't I don't think you've been disrespectful, but I know the Steph heads think that if it's anything other than he's the greatest ever, it is disrespect. But I'm glad that he's getting his flowers for a postseason because we really haven't done it. The Andre Iguodala talk and that 2015 Finals MVP. Shout out to a frenemy of the pod, Howard Beck, who I know you and I like, but nobody in the Knicks world like. He did an article for Sports Illustrated yesterday. I think it dropped. I was reading it today. It might have been yesterday, but he went back and interviewed the other 10 voters of the Finals MVP and asked them, like, in hindsight, would you have done differently? And the other three, because he voted for LeBron, and the other three were like, no, like it would have been LeBron. Shout out to your boy Zach Lowe, who said if I had to pick a warrior, I would have picked Steph. But yes. I thought LeBron was the most deserving of a Finals MVP on a losing team since Jerry West,
which I think was fair. It was more fair than Iguodala.
And all 7 said all of these qualifiers of like the Warriors were dead. They inserted Iguodala into the starting lineup. LeBron shot 39% from 3 in those final 3 games. He had 40 points in game 4, so game 6, game 5. Eventually I got the game right. So I don't know, like, yes, Iguodala made LeBron work for it, but I wasn't exactly like, oh, he shut LeBron down over those final 3 games. I think LeBron, after having to carry the load, showed that Superman bleeds and actually ran out of gas in those 6 games. The point being, part of Steph's legacy, and this is what the last question of that article was, is his unselfishness. That if the strategy was, we're going to take advantage of your double teams, and by creating those advantages, we're going to play 4-on-3 against everybody else because they're doubling Steph. Andre Iguodala is open for threes, which he scored 25 points in the clinching game because Steph is being doubled. Harrison Barnes is open. Klay Thompson is open. And at that point, Draymond Green is open because of all of these different ways that Steph tilts the balance. It's why the Warriors have been so successful. He demands such an attention and so much gravity that sometimes it doesn't show up in a box score. And sometimes people think, oh, he's never won a Finals MVP. He's never been great. Meanwhile, there's a Cavs assistant in that article that's quoted being like, we were shocked that Iguodala won because our entire game plan on defense was how to stop Steph Curry.
As is every freaking team's game plan.
Which is what made the Warriors so unfair when they got Durant, because it's like, because we're creating these advantages, Kevin Durant now gets to go play one-on-one for the rest of the game because Steph is demanding all of these this attention. And it's why I'm really glad that he's going to get, and look, we'll see how the next 2 games.
I was about to say, we have to see how it
I'm
goes.
really glad he's getting his flowers, that he's gotten this whole weekend, these last 3 days to just celebrate what has always been there and now is actually being realized by people. This is one of the greatest advantage creators that we've ever seen.